Okay, my name is Tom Kreuzer. Today's general topic that we'll talk about is smart TVs. If you haven't already, or if Jim hasn't, mute your audio and you can actually turn off your video if you want until the question and answer at the end of the presentation. If you do have a question or that, you can use the chat to ask a question during the presentation. Uh, handout is currently out on the PC Club website, and I believe Jim is going to put it in the chat section in a few minutes there. So if you look in the chat for this meeting, it will be included in there. Okay. Our agenda, first we'll cover some club topics, and then we'll get to our main topic. Future meeting this Friday, the 19th of February, the Mac SIG is meeting, and that's a web-only meeting using Zoom. They're going to be talking about new things in the Apple world there, cleaning up your Apple gear, progress with Netgear and Apple connectivity, external SSD drive, and a comparison of AirPod 2, AirPod Max, HomePod, and HomePod Mini. Also, we have coming up in March, we do have our monthly question and answer sessions. So you're welcome to join that, and I'll send out an invite with a link the closer we get to March 2nd. And then our next general meeting is going to be March 17th, and that will be on Do I Need a VPN, which is a virtual private network. We'll talk about what is a VPN and some of the pros and the cons of what a VPN can do there. Okay, our officers, Jim Holman is our president, Linda Brown is our vice president, Paul Ebert is our membership secretary, Paulo Thibault Munkowitz is our treasurer, and she just joined us a month or more ago. Chuck Scott is our secretary, Mike Griffin is Mac SIG, Andrew Petrucci is our communication coordinator, and my name is Tom Kreuzer. I'm a director at large. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul Ebert, your $8 dues. I do have a little note here in red. Paul received from Venmo $8 from an Allie Alton. And Paul doesn't know who that money was for. We don't have anyone named Allie in our PC club, so maybe a member had a family member or somebody send money to Paul. If that was you, get in touch with me or Paul, and we'll get it credited to the correct membership there. Also, if you have any changes to your email, be sure to notify us because that's the way that we can keep in touch with everybody. Okay, suggestions for topics. You can email your ideas for topics or talk to any of the board members. You can volunteer to present on any hardware or software that you use at home, or write a short or long article for the e-bytes there. Website, we do have our past meeting slides and handouts, and when we can record it, we put the recording out there also. We have a deals section, we have our e-bytes, and the link is here, but it's also sent with the email notices for all the different meetings. Okay, let's get to our main topic, which is smart TVs, and I'll be presenting. My name is Tom Kreuzer. Almost all TVs today are smart, and that means that they have internet connectivity, apps for streaming, smart home functions, and even some other alien sounding technologies. They really are part TV, part computer, and part smart device, which is good. In the past we just had a TV. Now we've started combining a lot of functions together here. They keep getting better and better every year. So the TVs keep getting more functions, just like computers. They get faster, they have more memory, they can do more things there. So what you buy today, unfortunately, 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road, you're going to wish you had a newer version with more functions. But when you buy, we'll talk about things to look for. I just replaced my 16-year-old dumb TV, and I paid about $2,000 back 16 years ago for the TV that I had. It was a plasma TV, and it died on me. So I did a little research and looked around, and I ended up with a $399 smart TV. And the full experience of what I went through, you can read about it in the November 2020 e-bites. I talk about going to Best Buy and a few other things in there so you can get the full story. I'll talk later on about the specs of the TV that I bought and what I like about it today. First, a little warning. Not all apps or all features that I talk about today are supported by all TV vendors and all models. So they vary widely. Like I say, even between the same vendor, the apps that are supported, the features that are there, they vary greatly. Each of these smart TVs actually has an operating system because it is part computer, and that operating system can be one of four options. The first is a Roku TV operating system. Second is an Amazon Fire TV operating system. The third is a Google Android TV operating system. Or if it's not one of these three, then it's a proprietary operating system just offered by that vendor. And that somewhat dictates some of the apps that it has, some of the capabilities that it has. So all these different TVs, kind of like computers, they're using different operating systems. Also, each of these TVs and models has a different remote, and the user interface can vary widely from model to model and vendor to vendor. How easy or how hard, or does it take voice, doesn't it take voice, things like that, and we'll talk a lot more about those things. I recommend here spending time at the store flipping through the set's smart offerings to make sure you'll be comfortable with how it works before you buy, and it supports the apps that you need. So you kind of have to know what you're going to do with the TV before you can really say this is the right make and model for me for what I want to do there. If you can't get into the store and try it out, one of the things that you can do is you can find a lot of reviews and information out on YouTube. And so you can get an idea of what the user interface looks like and how the different screens and some of the features from that. So that's another good source of information if you're buying a new TV. Okay, what can they do? I mentioned before the operating system. Well, the operating systems support loading apps, and these apps are apps just like you have on a smartphone or on a tablet. It's a different operating system, but you do have a number of the same apps that you have on your phone and other devices available for you to download onto your smart TV. Some of these apps are for paid live streaming services like a Netflix, a Hulu Plus, HBO Max, AT&T, Disney Plus, and many others. They also support free ad-supported streaming services like Peacock, Pluto, Tubi, and Crackle. So there's literally hundreds of apps that potentially could be loaded onto some of these devices there. You also have streaming music. So you can load apps for like Spotify or Pandora or YouTube Music or Apple Music on. Also podcasts, and you can use your TV kind of as your central entertainment hub to play music or background. So if that's important, you want to make sure that the make and model supports the apps that you want. Another group of apps that is popular are social media. So things like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Some support them, some don't. Another category would be apps for doing video chatting. So just like we're doing today with Teams, some of the TVs will let you load up Skype, FaceTime, Teams, or Zoom, and you can do it all through the TV there using the screen, and then they have a built-in mic and a camera, so some of them have that feature and function. Continuing with what they can do, most of them allow some capability to mirror or share your pictures or videos from your smartphone or tablet on the TV. And they usually use a system called Google Chromecast or Apple AirPlay to mirror the screen. And so you can start movies, or you could do share your movies or videos on your smart device and then cast it or have it play on your larger TV. Another feature that a number of them can do is web browsing. So you could use your TV kind of like a computer to do browsing of the internet. Browsing can be challenging unless you add a wireless keyboard. And we'll talk about adding a keyboard and some of those things a little later. But if you're trying to do searches or trying to click on things and you don't have a keyboard or a mouse, it can get a little more difficult there. Trying to use the remote to click on things and to enter in text or things like that. Some of them also have voice integration to navigate the website, but even that can be challenging. If you're looking to browse the internet, the TV usually isn't the most useful, but if there's just a few things that you want to do or share, it can be handy. Another big feature or function on the smart TVs is the voice or video assistant that's built into the TV. So some of them come with the equivalent of an Amazon Alexa or a Google Assistant built into the TV, so you don't have to have one of those devices in your living room or in your entertainment room. It's built in there. If your TV supports that, there's usually a mic in the remote, or there might be a mic or a camera built into the TV. Some more of what they can do. In addition to possibly having the built-in Amazon Alexa, even the ones that don't have a built-in Amazon Alexa or Google or that usually can be controlled using your voice or another video assistant. So once you set that up, it's a case of, instead of using the remote or that, you can just tell Alexa, power on, TV mute, volume up, change channel, playback, fast forward, rewind. So you can do commands like that. Most of the commands aren't that convenient. Personally, myself, I end up using the power on and power off, the mute. So if I get a telephone call, I can just tell it to mute my TV and that. So there are nice things that you can do there. And you can also change the input and even some more commands, but those are the most popular commands that you might use with your TV. Another feature is on-screen universal search engine or guide. So this kind of combines the apps that you have installed and the channels that you have access to, and it'll let you search through a particular movie or channel, just making it easier to navigate around. So this can save you time when you're looking for a program but don't know the channel or the apps that offer it. In most cases, that means that your remote has a mic built into it. That's usually the easiest for searching, as opposed to trying to type something in. But again, depending on the make and model, they operate a little different. Most of them will come with an app that you load on your smartphone or your tablet, and that also acts kind of as a remote control, or you can set up the TV. So changing some of the settings, whether it's Wi-Fi connections or the free channels that you get or things like that, it can be easier setting some of those things on your smartphone or your tablet than it is going through the menus on the TV itself. So there's usually an app there. The other thing, if you really want to get tricky too, is you can, your spouse, if you're at work and your spouse is at home watching the TV, you could be turning off the TV and changing things on her without her knowing what's going on. So you can kind of drive a person crazy there by manipulating the TV. Okay, next we'll talk about some of the questions around these smart TVs. First one is, how do you connect to the internet? Well, most of the TVs support, well, they all support either a wired and or a Wi-Fi connection. If possible, if you're close enough to your router or you can get a Ethernet there, I recommend connecting by Ethernet and not using Wi-Fi. And the reason for that is when you're streaming video from the internet, it's a large amount of data. And if you have a slow Wi-Fi router or weak Wi-Fi signal, you can have problems where you'll see it buffering and causing problems there. And that's especially true if you start using 4K. 4K is a higher definition video, and that ends up needing about 25 megabits per second per TV. So if in your house you were going to have 3 smart TVs, each watching different shows that were 4K, you'd want to make sure that your internet was probably at least 100 megabits or more to get adequate performance. If you tried to watch that on a 25 megabit per second internet connection, you'd all be having trouble with it buffering and being very slow there. Another thing to look for with the connectivity is if you are going to be using Wi-Fi, most of them support Wi-Fi 802.11ac. This is a standard which came out in 2014. A few of the new models now will support the more current standard, which is 802.11ax, which is sometimes called Wi-Fi 6. And if you have an old router, if your router is more than 3 years or older, I recommend that you buy a new router just because of the speeds that you need to be able to stream TV from the internet and that. And if your TV isn't getting a strong Wi-Fi signal, this is where I mentioned earlier, you may want to run an Ethernet line or buy a mesh Wi-Fi system. Some people will attempt to put in Wi-Fi repeaters. Wi-Fi repeaters work for kind of low bandwidth things that you need, but they don't work well with video streaming and that, because Wi-Fi repeaters end up cutting your bandwidth in half because they have to repeat. They have to listen and they have to repeat, and they're using the same frequency, and so there's only so much they can do, so they run slow. Okay, another question that you see out there is you'll see warnings on TV or in articles, and they're talking about TVs being hacked. Well, technically, in theory, yes, a TV can be hacked. It's very, very, very rare. To be safe, though, you avoid doing anything sensitive on a TV, such as online banking or shopping with a credit card. TVs are not as safe as a PC. If you do, because it uses that operating system. Sometimes there's vulnerabilities in the operating system, and If you're doing banking and some of these other things, use your phone or use a laptop. I don't recommend using the TV for that. And most of the hacks that you hear about are because people didn't use a strong, secure password. So they either left it with the default of the device when they were setting it up, or they didn't assign it. They used a password that they used for an account which had already been hacked, and so hackers can buy that on the dark web and they can get access to things there. Also, if your Wi-Fi isn't secure, it can be compromised, and so you want your Wi-Fi set up correctly. Okay, some other questions. Can my TV track my activity? And this again is one of those things that you see on the news and you see in articles there. Yes, your information that you share and click on a Facebook app or ordering on Amazon or what you watch on Netflix is shared in the same way that a smartphone app collects data on you all the time. All TVs and all apps are sending viewing data back to be sold to marketers and to advertisers, regardless of who makes the hardware or the app. So some of them will kind of give you a privacy section where you can go in and turn things off. Well, you're only turning off a small portion of what it's really monitoring there. But they do, because you have granted it access to your TV and you are using these services, whether it's Netflix. Netflix is going to keep track of what you watch. That's just a fact of life. And it has nothing to do with the TV. It is the way that Netflix works. So your activity is being tracked no matter what you do. Final question here is, can a TV replace my Xfinity cable service? And yes, we've talked about this in the past. August 2018 meeting was on Internet TV where we talked about different streaming services. So if you're looking to replace Xfinity, you can look at that on some of the options that are there. Also, I mentioned here, even if you're going to keep Xfinity, now that you have Smart TV, Xfinity actually has an app that'll work on some of the smart TVs, so you don't need to rent a cable box. So if you're currently renting a cable box, you may be paying a fee anywhere from $7 to $20 a month. If you want to get rid of that, load the app, use it on your smart TV, and you can get rid of the cable box, turn the cable box back in. Okay, let's talk about some issues or tips with smart TVs. Because these are part computer and they do have an operating system, most get software updates to bug fixes and add new features to the operating system. So because they're like an operating system, they are getting updates, whether it's to the apps or the operating system itself, they will get updated. The older your TV gets, if after, like, let's say 7 years, your TV and that operating system, the vendor may choose not to update it anymore. And it may not be able to run some of the newer apps. So just like an old phone or an old tablet or anything like that, they aren't going to last. Are you going to get 16 years out of a smart TV nowadays? No, just because things are changing. Also, I mentioned here, because it is part computer, your TV can crash and hang like a PC. So sometimes you have to unplug it, reboot it, essentially to start it back up. Certainly, in addition to smart TVs, you have standalone streaming devices like a Roku or an Apple TV or a Google Chromecast or an Amazon Fires and others that can be connected to any dumb TV. Or if your TV doesn't offer all the apps, you may choose to buy, let's say, a Roku, which does have the apps that you want, and connect that to the TV. So you can use these other streaming devices to connect to your smart TV to provide the services and features that you don't find in your smart TV. As an example, a Roku set-top device usually has more features and functions than most of the TVs on the market. So again, depending on those combinations of features and functions that you want, you may have to buy if you don't already have some of these streaming devices there. The only downside to adding these additional devices is the additional cost for the device, and there's also, you have another remote and another menu to deal with. Okay, if you're an Apple household and you use iTunes, iTunes does not run on any of these devices except the Apple TV device. So if you're trying to find a TV that supports iTunes by itself, you can't. You'd have to buy an Apple TV device, connect that device to your smart TV, because there are no TVs that support iTunes. I mentioned here, check the sound quality of the built-in speakers, because usually the speakers are kind of facing back. They like to keep the front entire screen, and so there usually aren't speakers pointing out the front. And the speaker quality certainly varies a lot from model to model. If you're not happy with the speaker quality or want better sound quality because you want that true home theater experience, then you're probably going to need to buy a sound bar, and those start at about $100 on up, that you can connect to any of these smart TVs. When buying a new TV, make sure to get enough HDMI connections. And there's different versions, just like there is of USB, USB 1, 2, 3. Well, you have HDMI, and the most current version is HDMI 2.1. Some people can live with just 2 HDMI ports. So if you don't have a lot of devices that you're going to connect, you may be able to get by with 2 ports, while other people need 4 to 6 ports. This is a list of some possible HDMI devices that you might need to plug into your TV. Can be some of those streaming boxes. I myself have 2 streaming boxes. I have an over-the-air, that's the OTA DVR. I have that. If you have games, PlayStation, if you have a DVD, if you want to connect laptops, and there's other HDMI devices that you may want to connect to the TV also. And so it's important not to buy your TV and then kind of go, well, I thought it had more connections. Well, if you need more connections, find a make and model that has it. Continuing on the HDMI, don't overspend on HDMI cables. So if you buy a new TV, usually a salesman or Amazon or that is going to recommend buying a high quality cable out there, and that cable may sell for $30 or $50, and actually that cable is going to be no different than $3 or $5 cable. So look around, and you can get standard cables that'll work fine for any device there. Okay, another thing to look for with TVs is not all the TVs have a built-in digital TV tuner for local stations or a TV channel guide. Now, some people don't need it because if you're still using services like Comcast, then you don't need the digital tuner. But if you're going to have over-the-air, the OTA stuff that you want to watch, then you're going to want to make sure it has a good digital tuner and a good channel guide there. Okay, most of the content that you view, whether it's over the air or from a number of these streaming services, is what's called 1K or 1080p. And that's the quality of the image itself. It's kind of like a camera, comparing a 1 megapixel image. The higher the pixel size, or the more pixels you have, the better the quality there. Well, you're starting to see more content become available at 4K every month. And most of the TVs, if you were to buy one today, most of the TVs are 4K capable. Now, 8K is already being sold out there, but there's hardly any content at all for 8K. So at this point, I wouldn't buy anything with 8K. It's very limited, and you'll pay a premium price for it. And again, these devices are kind of like a phone or a tablet or anything like that. If you want to keep up with the latest versions, you're probably going to be buying a new TV in maybe 5 years or something like that. Also, you'll see TVs sometimes.
I was in Best Buy a couple weeks ago looking at TVs, and then I was told now that the manufacturers are building in obsolescence. In other words, the components that they're using now are designed to fail in 5 years.
Yeah, I would believe that. The other thing that kind of like the Chromebooks, we had a meeting on Chromebooks before. The Chromebooks, the manufacturers stop updating the operating system, and that's really the same way with these smart TVs. They'll stop updating the operating system, and then stuff won't work. So it really is a case like Chris was saying, and that the days of buying a TV and using it till it stopped working, in my case 16 years, that's not going to be true. I'm going to be buying a new TV probably in 5 years or so. Okay. A TV with HDR, that's high definition resolution, will provide better contrast and color than a TV without HDR. You'll see other things out there, OLED TVs. They have the best picture, but they're pretty expensive. Most of them are LED or LCD, are usually good enough for most people. Size-wise, if you're getting it for a bedroom, the recommendation is a 43-inch TV. For a family room or that, you're usually looking at 55 to 65, depending on how far back from the TV you're going to be viewing. Because if you get too big a picture, then you're having to move your head back and forth, and that isn't a good thing. So there's all kinds of charts out there to show you what size is best. Some TVs look better or have a wider viewing angle. So TV's picture quality starts to degrade when you watch it from the side there. And that's where if you're going to have a setup like this little diagram here with the couches and that, make sure that it looks good from the angle that you're going to have people watching. Because the last thing you want to do is buy the TV and then you get it home and then you find out, gee, the picture quality really is not that good when I sit over in this spot here. You want something that is going to work for you no matter where you are. This is kind of if you go to a Best Buy or you start looking online, the purpose of the TV spec sheet is to bombard you with confusing terms and numbers in an attempt to get you to step up or buy the more expensive models. What I recommend is, buy the one that has the features you need and the picture looks good. That's your criteria there. Okay. Now I'll talk about what I bought. As I mentioned, got a little cough there. What I bought back in September of 2020 was a Samsung at Sam's Club for $399. You can get the full experience of what I went through on the e-bytes there, but I'll talk about a number of the features here. First off, I'd like to say I'm not cheap. I'm thrifty. My attitude is always, why spend more than what I need? And if I can get something that does what I need for $399, I don't have to pay $699 or I don't have to pay $1,000. And then when I need to update it in 5 years, I can update it and not feel guilty that I spent $2,000 and now it's outdated in 5 years. Okay, I mentioned I purchased a 55-inch Samsung 7 series TU 700D for $399. It does support 4K HDR. It supports 802.11ac or an Ethernet connection. Bluetooth 4.2. That's support for speakers, keyboards, or other Bluetooth devices. It has Alexa support, so it doesn't have Alexa built into it, but I can control it, power on, power off, volume, pause, things like that, through Alexa, through any Alexa device in my house. It came with two HDMI 2 connections, 2.0. It also has a USB port, and that USB port is what's called HDI, Human Device Interface. So in addition to maybe using it for power, it can also be used to put in pictures and videos, or a mouse or a keyboard, so it can work for that. The operating system came with a web browser installed and YouTube installed. It weighed 30 pounds, which my previous plasma was a behemoth. Same size TV, or it was a 45-inch TV, the plasma was, but it weighed about 200 pounds because of all the glass and the way plasma TVs are made. So it took almost 3 people to move that. Whereas this new one, I had no problem at all moving it around myself and that, so it was nice to see the change in weight. For me, not too many or too few buttons on the remote. Looked clear in the store, so I did check it out in the store and had a good viewing angle. I checked that out. Had some TV features, and it had everything that I needed. It did take me several hours to set up the TV. Once I got it home and got it connected, I had to install a Samsung app on my phone to get it connected to my Wi-Fi and set up an account. And once you set up a Samsung account, you get access to 50 plus streaming channels for free, and those will just show up on your TV, and you can use the guide, you can search, all these things there. As I mentioned earlier, it supported 2 HDMI ports, and I have multiple devices, but even before this smart TV, the way that I did it is I really only needed one HDMI because I use a 5-port HDMI switch to control what goes to my TV. And then I also have an HDMI splitter in between to send that signal to multiple TVs or rooms in my house. So as an example, my house isn't that big, but my TV in the front, all my devices are hooked up there, but I can watch them in my office in the back of the house. And I can watch it in my living, or I can watch it in my bedroom, and I can watch it in my workroom, and I can watch it in my downstairs. I can watch all these things on all these different TVs all throughout the house. The TV came with just a few pages for a quick start, quick setup, start info, and that's usually all they do is, hook up this, hook up that. And if you've listened to my meetings before, whenever I get a new device, I usually go out to the vendor's site and I look for their complete manual. Whether it's a printer, whether it's a phone, whether it's Alexa, no matter what device I have, I usually go out and look for the manual that has the most complete information. So I downloaded, in this case, a 188-page manual. I also downloaded the quick start, the user manual, and I saved the specs to a directory on my PC where I keep all my manuals and information. And that's just a tip, keep all your manuals and stuff together. But in this case, the Smart TV has lots of capabilities. If you don't download the manual, you aren't going to know probably half or less of what the capabilities of your TV are. So I recommend for any device that you get, download the manuals. It makes it easy to find info. You can search the PDF files and quickly find things if you're trying to troubleshoot or trying to figure out how do I connect a keyboard to my smart TV. Well, I can just type keyboard and go right to the area there. Makes it easy to find what you do, and you don't have to keep paper copies in a file folder or somewhere. Over the next days, I read the 200 pages and found out how to connect my Bluetooth keyboard. So I connected. I do have a keyboard there. I set up my Alexa commands on the TV so that, again, the volume and the muting and things like that would work. I looked at the manual to see what all the remote control buttons did. Why have a remote if you don't know what some of the buttons do? So it's useful to get that. And how to set up the Apple AirDrop. So my TV supports Apple AirDrop. I have a iPad tablet, and so I can share the screen and stuff like that. It did come with a YouTube and a browser app installed. I installed AT&T Now, which is a streaming service, and HBO Max. I installed those. I wanted to install a Google Photos app, but my TV didn't support it. It only supports a limited number of apps, and it was not one of them. It does come with that browser that I mentioned a couple of points above there. It came with a browser, so I used the browser and pointed to Google Photos, and I was able to get at my photos that way on the TV. I could also use my smartphone or my tablet and cast, and so there's other ways to do things, but I was trying to see what capabilities I could get there. When I looked at the manual and stuff like that, Samsung was talking about they have a photo viewer app, but that only uses the Samsung cloud to view photos that you've uploaded there. And I don't use the Samsung cloud, so that wasn't of interest to me. And like I mentioned, I could cast from my tablet or smartphone as needed. All in all, I'm happy with the new TV. To me, they sure pack a lot of features into the new TVs. They're now part TV, part computer, and part smart device. Also, the price of $300 or $399 is a lot better than $2,000 16 years ago for the heavy old plasma I had. I'll have to admit, though, the old plasma picture did look a little better in bright light and from all angles, but the Samsung does a great job. It's very adequate. And this is a YouTube review for the TV that I got. I think it's a 15-20 minute review that a person did, and it shows off some of the features and functions and how the menus work. So as I mentioned, if you're looking at a make or a model online, or you can't get into the store and see stuff, well, take a look and you can usually find a demo or see what stuff looks like there. Additional information, this is a link from PC Magazine, the best TVs for 2021. And here's another one for the best TVs if you're looking to buy. This is from CNET. Okay, I'll stop sharing here, and we can cover the chat questions and get some questions and answers. If you want to ask a question, you can unmute your audio and your video to ask a question there. So let me do this. Let me do this. Okay, we should be back. Okay, let me see here. I'll go back up in the chat here. Okay, Mike put the handout out there, so the handout's out there. It's also out on the website if you want to look out there. Paula mentions, just bought a Samsung Smart TV this past November. Love it. It's fun to have the different apps. I pay for Netflix, but have free Prime Video. Came with Amazon Prime, free Tubi, free Apple TV. I bought a new phone, and like she mentioned, occasionally you get HBO Max or some of these other services. So depending on who you're buying from, Verizon or AT&T, you can get access to some of the others. Anyone have Sonos soundbar connected to a TV? Well, I'll let people speak to that. I don't. Certainly, there's lots of different speakers out there. A Sonos is one of them there. Use HDMI connection to your Mac PC to get iTunes. You could, but most people don't want to physically connect their PC or laptop to the TV. That's where the casting or the Apple AirPlay or things like that are better ways to connect there, usually, because you don't physically have to take a cord and connect it in there. Just wondering what Tom did with his old plasma TV. If you want the story of the plasma TV, read the eBytes article. That was one of my worries to get rid of it, and I ended up kind of palming it off on Best Buy there. I had to pay $25, but I was glad to get rid of it. My daughter has a new smart TV, TCL, and her internet service does not play well with Chromecast. Have you heard of this? No, I have not heard of that. Again, what usually is involved there is the way that you set up your home networks. So Chromecast is a way to take things from your phone or PC and connect in. You have to be on the same subnet. And if you set up repeaters or things like that, those are entirely different networks. So that's one subnet, then there's a second subnet and a third subnet. And so that if that's the case, you have a problem. Or people will have one device hooked up to one router and another device hooked up to another router because they got a router with their internet service provider, and then they bought their own Wi-Fi router and they didn't turn off the first router. So they have multiple routers and multiple subnets within there. And if you're not on the same subnet, Chromecast won't work. So that's usually the case. The other case that I've seen is somebody trying to use, let's say, one of the original Chromecast, from years ago. Well, they've improved the quality and supporting the speed, so you may have to update to a newer version. If you bought a new smart TV or you purchased a new Google Chromecast 4K, you'd probably have better luck there.
I'm going to interrupt, Tom.
Sure.
We'll get a couple of the people that are online here. Al Rivard had his hand up, so Al, you can unmute and go ahead.
I was curious about what over-the-air DVR you have and how satisfied you are with that.
Actually, I have two of them because over the years I bought one of the first Channel Master over-the-air DVRs, and then Channel Master came out with a newer one, and so I actually am using both those devices at this point. The trouble with over-the-air DVRs, if you've looked into it, and digital video recording, they support any number of tuners. Some of them support 2 tuners, some of them support 4 tuners for recording and playback. So you have limitations there. You also have the guide itself. And the Channel Master, the thing that originally attracted me to Channel Master was the free channel guide. But with my first Channel Master device, it's a third-party channel guide, and it doesn't work as well as it did when I first bought the machine. So you run into things like that. Other people, the other popular one now that you'll see most popular out there for recording is the TiVo. The TiVo has a very nice. The only problem with the TiVo is monthly fees for the over-the-air guide. So that's kind of what's out there. And if you want to talk more about it, we can talk in an individual meeting, or I can tell you exactly what I have and things like that. But yeah, there certainly are some options there. I do not watch hardly any live TV. I'll record everything and watch it because the average show, an hour show on TV, I can watch in 40 minutes. Zipping through the commercials and things like that. And so I like to watch a lot of sitcoms and a lot of TV, and even like a Viking game. If I'm not around for the Viking game, I'll record the Viking game and I'll watch the Viking game and maybe about a half an hour. So it's a case of a DVR can be real nice there. Okay.
Do you have a hard disk connected to your DVR, and if so, how many hours of recording can you get on it?
Yeah, the Channel Master, the current version, you can put whatever size hard drive that you want there. It does have to be, I think I forgot the speed that it has to be, but most external hard drives will work, or even a solid state drive will work. I have a 2 terabyte drive on there, and I believe I could get probably, I don't know, I would guess 500 hours of 1K television recorded in there. So I've never used more than about 20% or that. And if you are going to have a DVR, I guess the thing to look at, similar to the TVs, is how does the DVR itself function? How does it keep track of the things that you've recorded? If you're recording off of the guide, is it smart enough to know which channels are new shows and which are repeats or reruns? So those types of things, you get different capabilities with some of these DVRs. But to answer your question, it's an external hard drive. You can essentially get as big as you want there and do it. Now it's a proprietary format to the hard drive that it does, and so it's not like you could unhook the hard drive, hook it up to your laptop, and watch all the shows that you had recorded on there. It doesn't work that way, but certainly watching it on the Channel Master device or on the TiVo device, you'll be able to watch whatever you want there.
Thank you.
Okay.
The other person was Jim White, and he put his question in the chat too, so you can probably head back to the chat.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, Jim mentions, did you buy or lease the CenturyLink upgraded Wi-Fi router? Does the new router mean that it costs you more? As we've talked about home networks before, I don't recommend leasing routers from whether it's Xfinity or CenturyLink or whoever. I recommend buying them because certainly if you usually keep the router more than a year, it will be less than what you pay in leasing fees for it. So when I got my fiber optics installed in my house, they gave me a free modem which takes the fiber optics and converts it to an Ethernet. Then I purchased a modem that I use for my Wi-Fi and has 4 Ethernet hardline Ethernet connections out of it, and So I'm not paying a leasing fee, and that's what I recommend people do, and that's where you can, depending on the size of your house, and that's where there's if you live in a small apartment, you can get by with a $39 router. If you live in a McMansion that's 3 floors, you're probably going to need a mesh system, and you may end up having to spend like $500. So that's kind of the price range. You can see there's very different, but if you're looking to get fast internet coverage of area, you want to size and get the correct Wi-Fi routers.
What's the speed of your router?
The speed of my router is 1 gigabyte.
Okay, is that the one that costs $200 from CenturyLink?
When I bought it from CenturyLink, and at that time it was, I believe, $99.
Okay, thanks.
And again, there are other makes and models, each with its different speeds, different standards that they support. Okay. Merrill says only one router and the TV is connected directly to the router via Cat6. That's kind of an interesting story too with the Cat6. When they were installing my fiber optics, they were putting in Cat5. Cat5 is a slower speed, more susceptible to problems. I told the installer I did not want Cat5, and I put in my own Cat6. And I ordered Cat6 through eBay, and so I have lines going through my house there, but you can buy like a Cat6 line for a 100-foot run for, I don't know what it was, $10 or something like that. So I wasn't going to have old lines in my house, even though they were free. I'd rather have something that I know I'm not going to have a problem with and pay $10, that kind of thing. So that's where the Cat5, Cat6 stuff comes in. Okay. Let's see here. Second question. My Samsung is a few years old. After numerous crashes and checking forums on the net, I found that the older Samsungs have a real issue with the Smart Hub working. Since I've stopped using the Smart Hub, which is a feature of the Samsung, it works pretty well. I think you said that you had a new, do you use the Smart Hub and does it work well? So far, I haven't had any problem with the Smart Hub. The Smart Hub is the app that that Samsung uses. So you install it on a tablet or a smartphone, and then you can control the TV, and you also can use it to set up. And so I would guess what your problem sounds like, Mark, there is kind of what we've been talking about. As these TVs get older, the companies are less keeping them updated and fixing bugs in the operating system. So you're kind of on your own there, and at some point, maybe turning things off, or they stop working, or the next version of Netflix isn't going to run on it at all, or things like that are going to force the issue to get a new television or a new device that you hook into the television, and then you start turning your smart TV into a dumb TV where it's just the display, and the smart is the new Roku box or the new Google Chromecast that you connect to the TV. Okay, let's see. John says we have Samsung smart phone as well as Samsung TVs. Very easy to mirror phone display just by clicking. Great for viewing smartphone pics. Yeah, the mirroring part, if you've never used that, or casting, is very, very nice, and to share things and things like that. So yeah, I'd highly recommend when you get a new device, or even if you have older streaming devices, a lot of them will support casting and that. So I was talking about the Channel Master over the air. Well, the Channel Master over the air will let you do Chromecast. It'll let you cast to the screen from a laptop or from a phone or from a tablet also. Okay. Let's see here. A couple. Jim mentions a couple higher up that I missed. Let's see. Oh, here's I'll go backwards here. Hopefully, Stefan asks HDMI switch versus HDMI splitter. An HDMI switch will take multiple inputs. So I have like 5 inputs of HDMI devices, and it has one HDMI output. So I can pick, do I want my Apple TV? I have an Apple TV. Do I want my Channel Master over the air version 1 or Channel Master version 2 or an old DVD player? So I can pick any of those inputs, and when that has a little remote, it picks one of those, and that's the signal that comes out to the HDMI here. I then take the HDMI and send it into another little box that's called a splitter that takes that one input and then has multiple outputs. So one input of the HDMI, then it has multiple outputs. One of these outputs goes to my TV, one goes to my bedroom, one goes to my downstairs, one goes to my office, one goes to the kitchen. So I can shoot it off in all these different directions there. So that's the difference between a switch and a splitter there. And you can buy that stuff on eBay or Amazon and that. Okay, Mark says, I have the wireless keyboard and mouse connected to my Samsung. Sure saves on trying to type. Yeah, certainly having a keyboard makes it a lot easier than having to type or use a remote and go over the letter A and you misspelled, or you was supposed to be capital instead. However, using the internet is extremely slow compared to my other wireless. My TV is connected via Ethernet. Any thoughts on the speed issue? What you can do, again, depending on the model that you have, like on my model, because it has a browser, I can run a speed test on that device just to see what speed I'm getting to the TV there. If you're connected by Ethernet, you should be getting your maximum throughput, and check that against the speed that you're getting on your other smartphones or other devices there. You should be getting fast speed there. Okay, Merrill says only one router and the TV is connected directly to the router via Cat6. Okay. Let me see. Did I miss anything else up here?
Yeah, that was just replying to where you're saying if you had the different subnets, but it was all into one and it was still had the issue. But now there are more coming in at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, I see Bonnie here. Off-topic question. Can family members, sisters, or non-3M employees join the PC club by sending in or signing up for $8? Yes. Anybody can join. You don't even have to be. We have contract people, family members. People can join there. Also, in case you haven't noticed, if anybody can go to the website, anybody can connect to this meeting. We aren't limiting it. So technically, you wouldn't have to be a member, but we'd prefer that you are a member and keep signed up there. Okay, Jim White mentions, I have an older Channel Master unit I brought from Minnesota. The main office is about 5 miles from us here in Arizona. I'm a friend of one of the VPs. I have one of the new units in Minnesota and now one in Arizona. So, I've talked with Jim a little bit there. And if anyone does want more information on the over-the-air DVR, So I have an over-the-air DVR. I have an outdoor antenna. And you want to make sure you have the best signal that you can get. That'll give you the best, obviously, the best quality there and the most channels. I think I get like 35 or 40 channels that I can record and see there. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I'll mention that one alternative to the channel master, though it's more cumbersome, is you can go to NBC.com or CBS.com or whatever and pick stuff up. What you miss, though, is you don't have the advantage of, you will still get the commercials and you cannot fast forward through them if you're going to watch them right off of what they'll offer to stream. But that is another way to pick up shows that usually, at least after a couple of days, it'll be free for a while. You can pick up old episodes. So, yeah, the DVR is a lot more convenient.
Yeah, like Jim mentions, Peacock is a new streaming service from NBC that came out, and that's free. You do have the commercials and that in there, but like Jim was mentioning, if you miss an episode or just want to see, I think you can go out to Peacock and you can see all of the old Office reruns. So there are a ton of free services out there with streaming capabilities. It's just a matter of what you want, and that's why there are so many options for paid services and free services out there.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you. And if anyone does have any other questions, send them to me, or on March, what was it, the 3rd or something like that, the next question and answer. And but there's lots of capabilities in these TVs. And if you haven't looked at the manual for your TV, I do recommend that you go through the manual. You'll find all kinds of features and functions that you probably didn't know about.
Tom,
Thanks,
I just posted a question.
Oh, okay. Paul has here. I have a Roku device attached to my old dumb TV, but have been disappointed with finding free movies. Again, if you just Google free streaming services, and you'll see a number of them. So an example would be like Peacock and things like that. You aren't going to see current run movies out there, but you're going to see all kinds of deals. And if you like movies, or if you like old series or things like that, there's a lot of different things out there. And I think back even on the old one that we did several years ago on the streaming services, that lists a number of the free services out there too. And I listed 2 or 3 today, but there's literally thousands of services out there. Now some of them come and go. I think, what was it, last year? The one with the shorter TV shows. They were 10-minute TV shows or something like that. That was supposed to be the latest craze because millennials can't watch TV for a whole 30 minutes. So this was an attempt to satisfy that. That TV or that streaming service started up, had a lot of ads, and then was gone, I think, in 3 months. Okay, well, we'll see everybody next time, and thanks for joining.